So this was me when I was young. This is actually my cousin, who's pretty much, I guess, my best friend. I also have a sister who's a little bit older than me, and we like to have fun when we were young, and that's, I think, a beautiful thing. I got a little bit older, and then I loved like spending time outside. This picture is from La Grave in France. It's in Parc des Crins in the southern section of the Alps, where I spent some time, and it's just super beautiful. I love being outside, and it's always been a part of me, I guess. I came back to Connecticut. So I grew up in the area, came back to Connecticut, and then I worked essentially for a bank, doing more like environmental, social, and governance related investment work. But it really wasn't for me. It was just not really the right fit. I think that I wasn't making enough of an impact. So I left the bank, and I started just thinking about things. And I knew like I didn't want to put any more stuff out in the world that's going to end up in the garbage, which was basically everything. Everything is going to end up in the trash. It's just a matter of time. We might be able to do some recycling, some recovery, stuff like that. But basically everything ends up in the trash. Actually, except if you think about the organics material, like the organics, like the food scrap and stuff, that can actually be completely brought back into our soil and recycled in a perfect way, the way it's been done for millions of years, and longer, I guess. But it felt like so much of the world was just like, there's like a kind of, we have a consumption issue. It's like, we should really kind of think about that. It's like, what are we consuming on all fronts, on all levels, whether it be like the technology, the stuff we buy, we all create trash. Every single one of us creates trash. Every single person in the whole world creates garbage. And I just was like, I just didn't want to like, continue that route at all. So I was like, we have to reduce it. We have to do something that actually reduces the waste. And I was like, whatever I'm going to do next, I'm going to reduce. I'm not going to put any more garbage out in the world. So it's hard because it's just counterintuitive. At the same time, you've got kind of things going on with food, like monocropping and pesticides and just all this kind of crazy stuff. So I began to just do the research, and this is kind of going back 7 years at this point, maybe even longer, 8 years. And this was food waste was already a major issue. That there was a global problem, and we didn't even have solutions here in Connecticut. Like in Connecticut, we're like, oh, we kind of have everything like figured out, like we kind of know everything. But this was a problem right in our backyard that was completely being ignored. When we looked at it, and basically 40% of all food's already being wasted. It's being wasted at all levels. The waste is tremendous. It's a waste of energy, electricity, water, utilities, money. It's just kind of crazy. So anyway, this was kind of nuts. Then we went into just looking at what was going on in Connecticut. So a lot of these data points, they exist right now. They're still basically the case. We haven't really moved the needle at all in the last 10 years, say. With about, when we looked at it, even 7 years ago, 520,000 tons of food scraps going into the trash every year. It's 22% of the waste stream is the food scraps. It's the largest portion of the trash. Then we had the recycling rates at 24%, but that's supposed to be 58% by next year, and that's just not going to happen. And then next to that, we also have this whole aspect of food insecurity. So then despite all the wasted food from the farm all the way across the cycle, we still have like 13% of Connecticut residents that are food insecure. So we'll go through a couple more quick bullets, but we have landfills here in Connecticut, but they're closed, they're capped at this point. We had them, they still exist, but they're closed for new material. What we did was we have incinerators here in Connecticut, and the incinerators are getting older and older. They're 80% of the Connecticut incinerators in Connecticut are over 30 years old. They're going to need major capital investment. And there was an incinerator in Hartford, which closed last year, that was about 40% of the trash in the state was being processed at that incinerator, and it's closed last year. It needed major capital investment, and no one really wants these things either. Like, nobody wants a landfill here, nobody wants the incinerator here, and so for us right now, and we'll talk about it a little bit more, but now at this point, we're exporting about that 40% is going out of state. And it's like, well, I mean, now we're just shipping it in someone else's backyard. And we're thinking about, like, environmental justice and these issues. And it's like, what are we're too good to like handle our trash in state. We consume so much, we gotta just keep consuming, and we can't handle the trash, so we just send it out to some other neighborhood.
I'm curious with that, the pricing, I would assume, goes up too, right? The weight of the pricing is exporting it out, so.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I mean, the pricing just continues to go up. The pricing for trash and I wasn't going to talk about this so much, it's continuing to go up. Because basically there isn't, and we'll this is kind of a side comment, maybe at the end we'll talk about it. It's a utility, essentially. Trash is a utility, and I'll just say it right now because you had mentioned it earlier. It's really not metered. Like most of the utilities, when we put the water on, electricity on, it's all metered. But this utility is essentially not metered. It's something that needs to be addressed. People are kind of scared to be like, oh, pay as you throw, or unit-based pricing. Basically, but you need to have some sort of mechanism for the final person. And I'm not saying that we should get hit over the head with fees, but there's no mechanism in place right now. Whether you put a lot of garbage out there or a little bit of garbage, it costs money. It needs to be processed, it needs to be transported. It can't just, so that's kind of a bigger issue. I'm just gonna kind of keep cruising through here. This everyone should know at this point. This is the food recovery hierarchy from the EPA. What you want to do is obviously reduce food waste at source. That's the best way to do it. Buy less, whether you're a grocery or you're running a business or a restaurant or even your own home. Just purchase what you absolutely need. So it starts from the top and it goes down to the bottom. If you have excess food, if you're a grocery or institution, then make sure you have a food donation program in place. Work with the different infrastructure to have a food donation program in place. Then you kind of get down to the middle of it and the feed animals, and that we've actually had some developments here in Connecticut with more animal feed production sites. So we have one site that just came up in Berlin, which is creating animal feed from the food waste. And then we're getting down into the anaerobic digestion and the composting. These two are still very good. We can make, basically, if you put the food scraps in a digester in a closed container, the biogas comes up and it's a renewable natural gas. And it can be used, for heating, electricity, things of that sort. You also have the digestate coming off the digester, and that's composted. And then there's obviously composting element, which is focusing on the soil, rebuilding the soil, using the nutrient stream from the food waste as an input for soil production. And composting, real quick, it's the balancing of carbons, nitrogens, air, and water. So using those kind of 4 elements in a controlled system, you're making a soil amendment. So that's the composting, and it's kind of, it's a perfect system. You put in the food material, you put in the carbon, you have the proper amount of air and water, and you build the soil amendment. And we also sell the compost too, in addition to the food waste. Obviously, the sad thing is that we're mostly down here in Connecticut right now. You might know what's in, what's out, which is the recycling guide in Connecticut. Food waste is really not recyclable here in the state. There's some law in place for large waste generators, for grocery stores and folks like that. Some people follow it. I'd like to see more adoption of that. But the vast majority, when you think about it, I'm thinking, I'm kind of making this up, but I'd say still 90% of the food material is still going down here to landfill and incineration. And so this issue, this whole thing, this has not changed, since I started. This still holds true. They were still mostly down here. And I guess it was like a big opportunity, but yeah.
How bad is it to use a garbage disposal?
Garbage disposal, it's like maybe we'll take it after. It's
Okay.
kind of a bigger discussion. Maybe
Oh,
I don't want to go into it so much because it has a lot.
Okay.
It depends on where it goes and stuff, but lots of times, I guess I'll just answer it real quick because I think about it. Actually, I'm gonna hold off for a minute. 'Cause I don't get
This
that.
is good.
I'm gonna get to.
All under that.
it's off track.
No, everyone's interest is peaked.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm gonna say is, it's best to compost at home, and I wanna just say that too, because I do all this trucking and we're transporting of food waste and stuff. I wanna kind of remind folks that it's better if you've got the food material, basically the food scrap, food residual to compost at home, because then we don't have to do any trucking. So we just take the material, and there's a lot of different ways to do it. You can use like a home composter. They kind of have some gadgets now, that like dry and grind material. I'm not quite such a fan. I think that there's just very natural ways, like we don't need electricity to do composting. We can, there's a lot of different ways. You can do worm compost or vermicomposting. But I guess I just want to say before we kind of get into the whole trucking thing, which is what I do, is that it's better to just compost at home. Because then you're avoiding all the emissions and the whole thing. So, but that said, I felt like we still needed the solution. It's not like not everyone's gonna compost at home. We're gonna have grocery stores that won't be composting at their grocery store, and might have offices and institutions and restaurants. I don't know if those guys will be taking that on, and it's for some, it's the beautiful thing. The schools, we do a lot with the schools, and universities and institutions and stuff. So we need to have this solution as an additional solution, as kind of the backstop, because if we don't do anything, it's continuing to go to landfill. So that's why I saw this, that was like the opportunity, basically. And so I started kind of real small, local, with pickup truck and driving around and weighing, like down here, we're weighing the material. It's about 12 pounds a week per household. We've got some pumpkins thrown in the mix. People kind of recognized a little bit what we're doing, and I started talking. And then down here this is almost edible, if you ask me. Like, it's kind of nuts. Like, this came out of a school. This really should be donated. But we picked it up for composting. It's better than going in the trash. We kind of, so as time went on, we just kind of kept on kind of building. We had to essentially buy bigger trucks, because we said it like 520,000 tons a year. It's like, even no matter what trucks we buy, we'll never kind of almost reach the kind of tonnage that needs to be transported. But so for me, it was kind of bigger trucks, learning about the equipment, hydraulic systems. We continued to kind of change. We moved from pickup trucks to vans for the residential collection. So if you see one of these in your neighborhood, that's us doing the food scraps. We also set up the drop-offs. So this is at Greenwich transfer station, and we're also actually at the Darien transfer station, setting up our carts at transfer stations. We're at 11, 12 transfer stations in Connecticut. So what happens is we put our carts at the transfer station. So when people drop off their recycling and their trash, they can also drop off their food scraps. This is critical. I think we need this at every transfer station at this point in Connecticut. It just gets things going. and people can take the food scraps and put it in the carts, and then we service we drive our trucks around to the transfer stations, we pick up and we aggregate all the food scraps. It's like, that's what we're doing, we're picking up and aggregating all the food scraps and transporting.
It's
This-
amazing how
yeah.
many people don't even know about their transfer station or even what that is. As
Yeah.
as a retailer in Norwalk, because eco-friendly, everyone comes to me like, do you accept this light bulb? I'm like, no, but your transfer station does. They're like, what's that? I'm like, it's where you look up your garbage.
So, yeah, I know, and in this market, exactly, it's, there's different elements, but we have to start with the basics and like the foundation and having the food scrap drop offs and having place where people can go for the transfer station, yes.
Would you ever consider, I have a catering business, one
Yeah.
of the things, bringing us like a small business, one of these bins, like we have. for
Oh, yeah,
events?
totally. Yeah, we'll get, you know what, yeah,
We're
of
doing
course,
it.
we'll talk after, and you know what, and also, maybe I'll go let me go through it all, and then let me take,
You should definitely do it.
I'll take the question.
I just did my son's bar mitzvah. I only hired a caterer who brought their own compost bins. I mean, everything was
I
compostable.
composted
We
for
created
weddings, yeah.
Zero waste at this event, and it was, if people do it now.
So, so I still kind of go skiing a little bit and spend time with my daughter, and I kind of just put that in for fun. But at the same time, we do also event composting. This was down at the beach in Westport, composting the Lobster Fest event there. And again, in the beginning, it's like it's all hands-on. It's like it was a small business, so it's like learning about electronics and wires and all this kind of trying to make it all work. As time went on, we also wanted to make sure we have a compost market. So we should have a strong local compost market. So it kind of goes back to like the recycled content. We have to support the recycled markets. And also compost is great because it's not chemical fertilizer. So we've been doing more and more sales of compost, garden soil, mulch, bulk, bag, delivery. You go on the site, we deliver the material. We'll probably deliver a good 150 to 200 yards this spring to local gardens and community gardens, households, institutions. And that's important too. We want to have like a robust local market for the soil. We also moved into New York. And so we've been doing more collection in New York. This was for a drop-off program. So doing a lot of educational work, signage, basically for everyone, educating. Also myself personally staying involved, like in some gardening, some work, not kind of losing track of the whole picture. This is kind of the sad reality. Like we're going like bigger and bigger trucks. My background was not in trucking. And so for me, it's been a learning curve. So this was a dump truck, and this dump truck turned over. It was everybody was okay, but these are the battles. It's a little bit dangerous, and it's not easy, having a small business. It's like it's just the way it is. We got rear-ended on 95. You gotta just be so careful on 95. But this is part of the journey, I guess. And I guess it's not gonna be perfect. I knew this isn't gonna be so easy. Like I thought it was a pretty simple concept. Like, okay, let's get this transported, and it shouldn't be but it's all in the details. And these are the kind of battles that we have every day. The containers real quick. This is the 5-gallon bucket we use for the household. So they can be used, in single family homes, condos. We also have the countertop container, and you put the bag in there. And then we have the 32 and the 64-gallon carts that we use for the institutions, for restaurants and all types of businesses and grocery. Also, we want to do more in apartments, so we could just do the tabletop container, and then with the countertop container with the cart. we service like basically all types of generators, all the way from the smallest generators to the largest, like grocery chains in the area. This is one of our newest trucks, so if you see this kind of rolling around, the dump truck, it's got a tipper on the back. So for the larger containers, just to give you an idea, the food scraps themselves are, when you're in like the 32 gallon, that's about 100 pounds, and the 64, they're 200 pounds, so it's mostly water. So the material is really heavy. The client, and so we've had a lot of support from our clients. Like at the end of the day, it's really been the clients that have supported us, especially kind of over the last, yeah, as I said, like the last 7 years, it's been the clients at the end of the day. It hasn't really been the state, hasn't been like some grants or none of that. It's been the customers. And so we're just kind of there on the residential, the commercial side, and we're completely supported by people who want to do the right thing. So obviously, we have to, do our best for them. As time's gone on, I haven't, it's not enough just to like build the company and do all that. You have to, then you got to push on the legislative front. And that's what I've been doing. I speak with the legislators. I tell them about the issue. They actually know about this issue at this point. There's been enough awareness that they realize that this is a problem. And so now we're in a good, not like a good position, but the governor's has a new governor bill that's out right now. It's HB 6664, and that's kind of good because actually the governor raised it. So there's actually multiple bills that are out right now that are addressing food waste. But this one is a big one, and this is one that everyone should be supporting. There's always going to be pushback. This bill itself is it's got actually a fair amount in it. There's an EPR for so the extended producer responsibility for packaging aspect, which shifts some of the burden for like all this glass and plastic that's coming from the producers of the basically CPG industry. Because it's like, I'd love to be zero waste, and a few of us will do that. We'll have our, I don't even, like zero waste is like so high, but at least very reduced waste. But the rest, we're working in a much larger ecosystem. The grocery stores, it's like the grocery stores, we have to be very realistic. So we've got all this plastic and glass, and the idea here is to shift some of the burden from the municipalities that are kind of stuck with all this plastic and glass, and shift it back to the people who are producing it, basically the CPG industry. So this governor's bill, these are just 4 elements. Also, there's improved post-consumer recycled content, so making the CPG industry use more recycled content in their products. So that supports the basically the recycled product market. So our recyclables are worth more. And then there's stuff in here for the food scraps, and they're also they want to update the solid waste assessment. Overall, it's I really do hope it passes, and I just want to mention, if you talk with your legislators, talk with the local legislators, and make sure you support this bill. There are other bills as well that are addressing food waste, but this is kind of the big one. And yeah, because right now we've got 860,000 tons per year that's going to out-of-state landfills, and that's about 40% of the CT disposal.
Is
yeah.
that 40% just what could be composted or recycled, or is that all? Or is that all food, all trash?
That's all trash.
Okay.
That's the whole thing.
Do you think that's like millions of dollars, millions, that figure with the expo? Okay.
Yeah, I think so, because it's going, I think, to like, it's going as far as like Pennsylvania and Ohio.
Okay,
So
millions.
it's got to, it's not sustainable, I think, in my opinion. We can continue to do that, but I don't think it's the right thing to do. Yeah.
And do you know what percent is food waste within the 40%, or like a guess?
It's the food, yes, it's 22%. So it's
Substantial.
22%, yeah.
Yeah,
Something, just to add to what you're saying, because you know all this. This will give you a break to think, but I did visit the Wheelbrader incinerator in Bridgeport, which anyone can go and make an appointment and take a tour. They're really good at giving tours. And something that stood out to me is they were very knowledgeable on what's in their waste. I asked them a couple of questions, like, what about food waste? They said, we hate it. You know, we're an incinerator, we're in a fuel business. We need to buy more fuel to burn
Yeah,
that water
that's right.
waste. And then I said, well, what? And then it's amazing to see, you know, their forklifts of all these, so many plastic bags. I said, what about plastics? How do you feel about plastic? We hate it. The burning point is too high. So it leaves like coats their incinerators. So like they hate the plastics and the food in their waste stream. It's just interesting.
Yeah, the food it's all wet, it's mostly water, it's 75% water, essentially. It doesn't burn at all, it doesn't burn well in the incinerator, so it doesn't work in the landfill. I don't know if we said this, but it releases methane because it's in a closed system and it's putting methane into the air. It's greenhouse gas that makes the earth warmer. But also if we bring it to the incinerator, that's no good either because it doesn't burn. It's basically like trying to burn water. There's no point, and the whole time it can be used as a resource to improve the microbial life of the soil. Yeah, time. See if there's anything else, just kind of, just real quick, we're in, we started in Fairfield County, but we're kind of all over Western Connecticut at this point, and into New York, Putnam, Dutchess, Westchester. I guess we do obviously metrics for our clients, so it's good so they understand. I guess the last thing I was just say is that we don't do the composting ourselves. We work with processing facilities. I'll just kind of, because that might be a kind of big question for folks. This is a digester in Stellington that we work with. We also work with New Milford Farms. We're also working with animal feed. So we kind of know where all the places are to process food waste. And for composting, and we are directing material based on the stream. So based on the details, like for example, the animal feed location likes drier material. So we're looking for like, you know, if we can get like breads and grains, that type of material, then we're going to bring that more for like animal feed. If it's like a little bit more contaminated and more plastic, like packaged goods, we can take packaged material. And this has changed over the years. Originally, I was working with a small scale composting site and everything would just be like super clean and depackaged and just the food scraps. But now like there's like the digester has depackaging equipment. So we can bring packaged food waste from the grocery store and bring it straight there. So there's been essentially developments, depending on like the stream, we specialize, we know like the different like processing facilities, and then we can basically bring the material to the right location and build all the routing, aggregate, and that's kind of what we're working on right now. All right. Do you have any questions?
Just one quick question. I was going to ask, like, what do you actually do with all of the collected material? And so is that happening in Connecticut? Is the composting happening in Connecticut? And also, what do you think the timeline is going to be that maybe the state requires from all of the households to do composting? Is that anywhere on the horizon? Because I know that no big change is ever going to happen just from goodwill of people, no matter how much goodwill people have. Unless there are laws in there and people have to do it, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, no, we have, so we're building the transportation and we also have the processing capacity, because that was the biggest issue for me. I was like, it wasn't really buying, like doing the processing. For me, it's like getting it separated. That was kind of the biggest challenge. Like, how are we get people to separate this stuff? So this governor bill, the 6664 governor bill, that is going to push things along. There's basically two things in my mind that are going to move the needle. Two things. One, it's got to be we got to make it a recyclable item. So the state basically has to say this is recyclable. Recycling is the law. A lot of people don't recycle, but it is actually the law. But so that's a good thing. That's a good place to start. Make it a recyclable item. The second thing is cost. It's got to be cheaper in my mind than trash, and that's where we're going basically with this, because trash prices keep going up, and food scraps we can process in state. Basically at lower costs. So that's what I'm constantly working on, kind of pushing the pricing down. So there's an economic benefit for the people. So make it the law and have it cheaper, and make the recycling cheaper than the trash. And that's the only way I really see like mass adoption.
So I am Brad. A lot of people do call me the eco dude when they forget my name. I wasn't always the eco dude. I actually have a whole history that has nothing to do with sustainability. I actually have a master's of public health. I am an expert in adolescent health. I was in the Peace Corps after college in Gabon. And then I got my dream job at Save the Children, which is just up the street in Fairfield. And I got to travel. I was there for 17 years. I traveled this whole world 100 times over. I've been, you name the country, I've probably been there 5 to 10 times, like Ethiopia 10 times, Nepal 11 times. I was stuck in the earthquake in Nepal in 2015. I just happened to be there working. And then I went into disaster humanitarian mode instead of the work I was doing. So I've had an extraordinary life, but I've always really cared about the environment. It's part of my history. I started a recycling club in 1992 in my school when we were using styrofoam trays. You all remember the styrofoam trays and I remember I was on the student body and I organized a field trip to another school that was actually recycling their styrofoam trays into park benches. And we got to go and visit. And I always felt it was so important to go see things and go visit the facilities that are doing the recycling, because it really leaves that impression. And then I got our school to start doing that. So I kind of always cared. It's part of my thread. And then when you travel to some of the most impoverished countries, environmentalism is like there in your face nonstop, you know, where there aren't good water systems and trash systems and people are living on daily subsistence and survival, burning their own trash. You just see this stuff. When I was in the Peace Corps, I had no running water. I was bathing in the river. And so thinking about people washing their clothes in their same river, what they're washing it with, you're thinking about this every day. So that's where I learned how to garden. That's where I started composting. So you just learn so much by being in survival mode. And then you come back here and you get a lot of cognitive dissonance because we're in like one of the richest counties. Yet there's so much we can do and there's so much happening right here that, you know, people don't have as much privilege as we have, and they're still living that survival, but in a very different way. They're living that survival with that consumerism and consumption that Nick talked about. So I I recently moved to a neighborhood in Bridgeport, and I look at the trash of my neighbors, and it's overflowing. And somehow my family creates 1 bag of trash a week, 5 people. And it's really because of some of these changes, getting the food waste out, recycling more, and going back to that source. Like, what am I buying? Why am I buying it? Is there an option that has less plastic? So all that stuff's been part of my thread. I think how I got here is a few things. My father was a small business owner. He was a wholesale food distributor. I don't know if you do that, Nick.
Yeah.
So I grew up in the food industry. I used to get rid of a lot of, in the summers, I used to get rid of a lot of that food waste. My dad would make deals with people and get, 1,000 cases of half rotten lemons. And this guy had to, we called it turning the cases, right? Like, get rid of the rotten lemons and make 1,000 cases to 500 good ones that you could sell. But we didn't have composting back then. So those rotten lemons went into the trash. But there's been so many developments with food banks, and the wholesalers are giving to food banks and composting. But so we come from a small business family. I kind of get that. I saw the grit and hard work of my father his whole life. At Save the Children, I was working on behavior change. It was adolescent sexual and reproductive health. If you think about that, I'm kind of like known in that weird world, but at the end of the day, it's behavior change. How do you get people to do the things they know are better for them? Like, what are those barriers to get them to do those things? And when I was exploring making a pivot, it's like, what could be my contribution to this space? And, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a trucker. You're a trucker. I don't know what you are. So I was like, what could be my contribution? I felt like I could really help people do those individual changes while other people were doing the advocacy, getting the laws changed, really changing systems. And somehow, in noodling on that idea, I thought a retail space would be a good place for people to touch, feel, smell, and I could talk to them. And so, yeah, I did the smartest thing that one could ever do is I opened a retail store during a global pandemic in June 2021. So that was really interesting. But one piece I'll go back that led me to that as well is I watched The Plastic Ocean. It was on Netflix. I think. I don't even know if it's on there anymore, but it was that movie I watched in late 2019. Again, I probably just got home from some trip in the Philippines or Bangladesh. And so I would come home, I would have 6 weeks to like recuperate, I'd catch up with my friends, watch some of these movies. That one kind of stuck out to me. I remember watching it with my wife. And then, afterwards, she's like, so what should we do? Like, should we go to bed now? I'm like, go to bed, we have to do something. And I remember her rolling her eyes, be like, oh shit, here goes Brad again. And I really was like, hey, we need to do something. I'm sorry, but we were making changes in our house. She's like, shit, because she loves paper towels. Like, she's not, you can't get her not to use paper towel. And I was like, are you going on this journey with me? I talked to my 3 kids. You guys want to be on this journey with me? I really think we could take some of the plastics out of our house or bring in less plastics. No one was on board. And so I said, well, screw all of you. I'm going to make this journey public to everybody. And I decided to create like a blog on Instagram called My Plastic Free Family Feud. It was about one dad's journey to take on his family and take out the plastics. So I actually started into the sustainability small business world as like an influencer, really. I didn't think I'd be an influencer, but people caught on to this and they thought it was really cool. I was getting a lot of followers. And then the pandemic hit like 4 months after I started, and it became like a fun project for me. Kept me really busy during the pandemic. I had a lot of time at home, like going through my chores, like we're done with this, we're done with that, what can we replace it with? And it's kind of how it started, actually. It was really fun. Also in that space, the way I became the eco dude is 2 ways. I started doing farmers markets, and it's probably where I met Nick. Because I was like, okay, people were like, you should monetize yourself. I'm like, I'm not monetizing my plastic-free family food. It's when people make changes. But as I talk to my friends, once you're online, you get into what I call my echo chamber. I was like, yeah, I thought everyone knew about plastic, the toilet, what do you call it, the toothpaste bits. I knew about bamboo toothbrushes and all this stuff. And I soon realized that no one hears about this because they're not in that echo chamber. So I started popping up at farmers markets to kind of like show my products. I literally just bought things at retail price and resold them. Like, I don't know, I just want to kind of spread the gospel. And I quickly learned that people were really interested in it. They'd never seen it before. They were curious and they were willing to try it. So, all right, that was interesting. I also realized that when I was there, it was a little hard to say, oh, you're that My Plastic Free Family Feud guy. It's like, okay, I need to change that. I need a brand. I also was realizing I created this space on Instagram that was so positive. And I realized you could really, and this is what I talk to my kids about, if you have a passion, you can get rid of all the noise and you can really create some positivity on social media. I met people all around the world caring about this issue, like chatting it up. And what I soon realized is that what I did is I entered the very stereotypical domestic sphere, which is a women's space, which I thought was silly because I was already doing gender work as children. And I always felt comfortable breaking down gender norms and shifting that script. So I was like, this is bullshit. Houses has everyone in. And so I shifted over to becoming the eco dude and also trying to get other men to, I think, what did I say at the time? I said, I want men to come out of the eco closet and just say they care about the earth. It's okay, guys. Like, you can care about the earth. And so I started these eco dude hangouts on Instagram where I was trolling all these other eco guys. Like, this is going to be a not live hangout. You're just going to get on this one day a month that I do it, and you're going to start commenting. I would get like 100 guys commenting, and then I would comment back and say, you have to read the other guys. You got this shark researcher in South Africa, you got this other engineer, but you got this guy making soap in Ireland. It was just a really cool group of guys who came out of the eco closet. And so I was the convener of this online space, and I still have some good friends from this. And so that's kind of how I became an eco dude. That's how I realized this could be a brand. This could be the brand behind business. And yeah, and then the way the retail store happened, I started doing a business plan. I already knew I wanted to do retail and a coffee shop. The coffee part happened because my buddy roasts coffee on a solar powered roaster, and he was starting a business. I'm like, we're gonna do this together. Let's do this. So I have no background in retail, no background in coffee. I make one of the best matcha lattes and cappuccinos now, so you'll come get one. It's really fun. I got the tattoos to be a good barista. than my 19-year-olds who don't show up for work, but I'm more reliable. So I didn't have a background, but like you, it's like you figure it out. You do become chief everything officer, and the business you thought you were going into ends up never being the business that you're in. So I opened a store with the best intentions of changing the world and helping everyone reduce their plastic consumption. You might have gotten these plates and the silverware from my store. I love that. It's like, wow, that can be composted. It's made from palm leaves and bamboo. So we can take these plates and compost them. That's where I started. That's what I wanted to do. And then I knew the coffee shop would be a good bolster for revenue source. And then I quickly learned it's going to take a while for me to make any money if I'm peddling an $8 bamboo dental floss. So better come up with ways to make more revenue. And so it was kind of part of the business plan, but I really scaled it up fast as I made a local artisan cooperative. Very easy for me to do, as you can tell, I'm an extrovert. And at all the farmers markets I was doing, there's always 3 or 4 other crafty people. So I was collecting these great friends, and I made it part of the model. When you come into my store, people get a little confused, like, what is this? And I explain what it is. How does this artist cooperative fit in? So if you're buying from a local artist, you're no longer on Amazon. That's huge for the environment. It's huge for our local economy. You're keeping money in our state. That artist is going to spend it maybe on composting, maybe here, and you're keeping money in our state, which is just amazing because then we can all bolster each other up. So for me, it makes a lot of sense. But the big pivot for me, where I think I'm at now, so I'm going to shift to like, where's my business at now? And then I'll talk a little bit about what makes it sustainable. But where I'm at now, I have days where I'm like, am I even an eco dude anymore? Like, do I even care about this stuff? Because it took me a while, but I've accepted the fact that I'm the coolest ethical gift shop. And you've been to my store a lot. It's like a gift shop, right?
Best.
When we have all the goodies
Sorry,
outside.
it's some goodies, but like when people come, they're thinking gift shop more than eco minimalist eco market. And that's what I wanted, because everyone else who has stores like mine are very minimalist. They're very small, boutique-y, and it's like just the dental floss and the laundry and the kitchen and that. And I was like, I want mine bigger, I want mine fun, I want it community-centric. And because the more people I get in, the more I can talk to them about the eco-friendly lifestyle and see if they make those changes. So I've accepted the fact that I'm a eco-friendly, sustainable gift shop. And there's days where I say I want to get rid of all of it and just be a thrift store and a vintage store, because that's really what sells and the margins are amazing. And I have fun finding that stuff. So, business where you go in, it does change over time. And it took me a while to accept that, but I'm okay with it now because I know that I put so much thought into the back end of my business, the things people don't see, and that there's so much happening on the sustainability front that isn't apparent to the eye. And so I'm learning how to tell that story in a visual way. I'm so not there. I need a lot of help on this. It's not my strength. I've learned in retail, people do not read. So less is more. I still have to tell the story. Even in the store, last night I worked a 12-hour shift yesterday from 9 to 9. And when I went at the end of the day, take out the trash. Other stores are probably taking their trash 3 times a day. I had barely a quarter trash bag of trash from a day in retail, which is amazing. So I have a lot of recycling, and we do have compost. I have 3, Nick picks up my compost once a week, and my coffee grinds. My coffee grinds used to go to a local farm, actually, and they used to grow mushrooms in it, but they closed. So I'm still I'd rather the coffee go back into the circular economy and something regenerative. They help coffee grinds are amazing, by the way. If you have a garden and you want to come with a bucket, I'll give you some grinds. Just spread it on your flower beds. They're kind of amazing. So like I knew my coffee grinds were going to be grown for mushrooms. I knew we were composting everything. All the people I buy from are also small business owners. I've talked to all of them. I have an 8-hour carbon footprint commitment. So all the products in my store that aren't local artists have an average 8-hour drive. It'd be really easy for me to open up an eco store and get everything from California and Oregon because they do this. But my idea was like, we need to build this up on the East Coast where we don't think as much about this. So I've averaged, and I keep like crazy spreadsheets, and I know that my products have an average 8-hour drive. So I can't get it from other places. I have to get it from this coast. And all of them are small bag producers, and they ship everything plastic free because they care. So that's how I don't create waste, is because with the packaging they put it in, I reuse to wrap our products in when people buy it. And so it's just so much going on. The other two things I'll say, like building the coffee bar was challenging and it cost more, but we used old crown molding as like vintage old crown molding as the front of our bar. We really thought about our machinery we were buying and had to pay more to get things that were American made, carbon footprint, and with a sustainability mindset. It's just a fun place. And we are like an event space too. So like tonight we have Sober St. Patty's Day party. Has nothing to do with the eco-friendly lifestyle, except what I found is there's so much intersectionality with people who care about social issues. So you get a bunch of 60 people in recovery in my store, and they're learning about what's going on, they're having fun, and they're in a safe space. So that's me. Thank you for listening online. Comment to Eco Evolution. I'm usually there. I'll talk to you and bring you on a tour and show you how sustainable it is. But we'll see. Hopefully I'm hitting 2 months of my 2-year anniversary. So my stats of closing are going down. But it's a struggle. It's a struggle. So keeping up the fight.
Wow.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.